Hey everybody, this is Miles. I'm doing a special Ravens video today only because if all of you have heard the recent news, um, Mark Trestman is gone. He is no longer the offensive coordinator for the Baltimore Ravens. He's been fired after the Redskins, that dreadful Redskins loss. And I'm going to go over just a few things of why this happened and going into week 6 of the season. I think week 5 was just a culmination of what we've been seeing for the last 5 weeks from this offense. Slow starts, not consistent offense, lack of running game. For it looks like many weeks we just assumed that the running game was just didn't work, or the offensive line was bad, and why they couldn't get the running game together. But it basically just seems like Mark Trestman, through his practices and things like that, didn't emphasize running the ball. Everything was pass, pass, pass. Dump it off to Kyle Juszczyk and dump it off to the tight ends and things like that. So um, it was basically just a thing for the Ravens where it got to a point where they were just sick and tired of uh, what he was doing. They were sick and tired of it. And this is a team that prides itself on running the ball, has been, always will be. Great running backs, and the Ravens have had since we've had Will Spaghetti, we've had Jamal Lewis, of course, Ray Rice, um, Justin Forsett when he was here. So they've been priding themselves for running the game since this team got started. Ground and pound, things like that. And we didn't see them. At the beginning of in the first quarter, the first half, Terrence West had 11 carries for 95 yards. I mean, he had already almost had 100 yards with almost the 10 carries. So that should tell everybody right there what they need to know. That the Ravens could have run the ball very well against the Redskins that day, capable of probably getting 200 yards of rushing offense on that defense. You could see they panicked. They had the fake field goal attempt, or they could have came away with 3 points. For an offense, especially right before that happened, when Zachary Orr got the strip fumble and recovered the ball in the red zone of the Redskins, there was no excuse why you don't come away with 7 there. None at all. Even the commentators made jokes like, Mark Trestman hates running the ball so much that even if they had the ball on the 1 yard line, he would still have run an empty back formation. And that's what we saw. His inability to know the flow of the game. There's a reason why I guess he got fired in Chicago. It just got to a point where he just doesn't. He in this new age offenses, he just doesn't have a grasp of how the games change and why the game is going more for a balanced running and balanced passing attack. And he just wants to throw the ball like it was back in the day, like San Diego Chargers with Eric Coryell and Steve Young and Brett Favre. Like he was comfortable those days, and everybody was just launching the ball 50, 60 yards down the field. That didn't work. It maybe worked those couple years when he was in Chicago, but I think it's worn. I think it's worn. Has worn his welcome out in the league at this point. I don't think he's finding a job elsewhere. And for the Ravens, as we all know, Ravens won't sit back, or the kind of organization that won't sit back and they won't take losing too much longer, especially if they see it as a problem. As we all know, back in 2012, when a similar situation happened, we had Cam Cameron as the offensive coordinator there. And after that Redskins loss, I see a pattern here. After that Redskins loss, Cam Cameron lost his job and Jim Caldwell took over. Now, they didn't really change, obviously, too much. This is obviously towards the end of the season, not week 5, but they ran similar packages, but established more of the run game into those packages instead of just throwing the ball like Cam Cameron. It wasn't so vanilla. They were able to look, we see what works. They found out what works, and they kept at it. They didn't try to change it. They didn't try to go back to the game plan based on what was scripted in his playbook. They were like, okay, we're running the ball better. I know we plan to throw the ball this game. We're running the ball really good, so let's do that until they stop it, and then we'll switch it up then. So that's why they got rid of Mark Trestman. His inability to adapt to the game, his inability to just deviate from his scripted playbook that he had for that game, not being able to see like, hey, this isn't working, getting the receivers more involved in the game, things like that. So, and I mean, you could tell. I mean, the Ravens fans, when they were calling it to 105.7 yesterday, and the announcers, the radio guys for 105.7, everybody had it. A lot of times they they say, look, the players make the plays, and you don't want to blame coaches for what the players do on the field. But everybody has said, from the Baltimore Sun or Mike Preston all the way down to myself, have basically said that coaching blew this game yesterday, completely blew the game, and there is no excuse. Even Harbaugh, which we rarely see him take, any kind of accountability usually for bad games, said, yeah, this is on us. Basically saying this is on me. I think he may have had a discussion with Ozzie Newsome in the prior weeks or so, or it would be last week after that Raiders loss. And basically Ozzie went in and telling, like, look, if you don't do something about Mark Trestman, and you're going to be out of a job. And I think his frustration in that press conference basically was saying, I don't want to get called into the principal's office and him telling me that I'm out of a job. So they fired Mark Trestman this morning. They're moving up Marty Mornhinweg. For a lot of people, this name may sound familiar, but for some people, maybe just new to watching football, you may never have heard him before. He's been in the league for a while. He was a head coach a while ago. He did coach the Detroit Lions in 2001. But his record there was 5-27. So I don't think if he pans out, you don't think you have to worry about him trying to jump ship and try to find another head coaching gig. I think he's tried it, realized it didn't work for him. So I think he's going to stay a coordinator. Now, I'm going to go over some things we do know about Marty Mornhinweg. He's an Andy Reid disciple. So they like a good balance of running the ball and passing the ball. If anybody knows, like, Andy Reid, so he is a more Andy Reid disciple. He was able to take over. I think they had fired their. Andy Reid is known to be the play caller for the Eagles and the Kansas City Chiefs. When he's with the Eagles, Andy Reid made the calls. He was the offensive coordinator / head coach. They weren't winning a lot of games, and at this point, I think it was in 2003, and they weren't winning a lot of games, and it got to a point where Andy Reid was like, okay, I need to focus on something else. He gave the play calling responsibilities to Marty Mornhinweg. They then won their next 6 games after that, with running a more run balance pass attack. I think Andy Reid was trying to throw the ball deep the whole game, and it just wasn't working. And and they had a backup quarterback. McNabb was hurt, so they brought in Jeff Garcia. And he did us all with Jeff Garcia, a backup quarterback. So he's been a quarterback's coach for most of his career, it seems like. He's coached Steve Young, he's coached McNabb, Jeff Garcia. More recently, he's coached Mark Sanchez, but there's some guys just aren't coachable. Mark Sanchez is probably just one of them. It is what it is. But he's coached some good quarterbacks in his past. And he's been a quarterback coach for Flacco now for the last couple of years. And now that he's come in going to make the play calls, I think with Ozzie and them, I'm pretty sure they had a meeting this morning talking to Marty Mornhinweg about what they want to do, and what he has to do now is we're going to run the ball. And that's what we're going to stick to. As we all know, Ravens fans, if you've been watching Flacco for the last 8 years, Flacco is a play-action quarterback. He thrives off of that. When he's able to run the play action, he can roll out to the right or roll to the left and have 10, 12 seconds out there to looking around the field for guys. He generally is more accurate, and he's not running for his life at that point. They have to run the ball. Most of the time when we saw Flacco drop back and it wasn't a play-action pass, he was running for his life. So running the football, it brings up more guys into the box, decreases the blitz a lot because you're not passing the ball. So it gives Flacco a little bit more time to navigate the field and make decisions. Flacco, I realize, does better when he doesn't have to think too much about what he has to do. And under Mark Trestman, it seemed like he was forcing Flacco to be more of a Peyton Manning or Tom Brady type guy, where you're kind of audible out of the play and go into a package and make it his own. And Flacco's not that kind of quarterback. Flacco's the kind of quarterback where he needs a good coordinator behind him making the calls. And when he has to think too much about it at the line of scrimmage, he tends to mess up. He's not that kind of quarterback. He's the one, just tell me what to do and I'll get the ball to the guy. One of those things. So I think Marty Mornhinweg, already with the relationship with Flacco, is going to be able to help him out a little bit better. Now, I don't know if he's going to continue the role as a quarterback coach now that he's moving to offensive coordinator. So I don't know who's going to replace that role, but we'll see. Then the good side for Marty Morningwig, as offensive coordinator, the 7 years that he was offensive coordinator that he has been in the past, his defense has been ranked near the top 10. So he was ranked first, second, fourth, fifth, ninth, 10th, and 12th in total offense, regularly highly ranked in big plays. So that's good for the Ravens. Ravens thrive off of big plays. As we all know, big plays change the game. With guys like Perryman, now I know he dropped some passes yesterday. He should have had that touchdown at the end of the game. There was one he dropped in the beginning of the first quarter. He should have attacked the ball. Granted, we have to remember this is his first season playing in the NFL. This is only his fifth game. No, not even his fifth game. I think he played the first one. So we got to give him a little bit. I was gonna have to grow up pretty fast, so I'm pretty sure they're gonna go over that film room with him, especially like you need to go start attacking the football. Put the 2 feet in. I know you're used to the only 1 foot in college, and this is your first really NFL action, and then you had a chance to drag the foot and maybe score a touchdown. But I'm pretty sure Steve Smith being there and those guys, I think they'll be able to bring him along, and he'll get it pretty fast. But having Marty Morningwig there, I think having top 10 defenses in the last 7 years that he was offensive coordinator proves that he knows how to make play calls. He knows how to run the offense to be most effective. And with the running backs that we have, look at Kenneth Dixon, you had Terrence West, and you had Buck Allen back there. You run 3 of those guys, and they were running great. And it's frustrating a lot of times when you see the talent that this Ravens offense has had. Going into the season, you had the wide receivers come in, you had the tight ends, the running backs, and it's just like, man, what's going on? You had some injuries at offensive line, but it wasn't enough yesterday for the point where they should have lost that game. And I believe Ronnie Stanley will be back next week against when they play the Giants. And you're going to have Urschel, or you're going to have X Lewis back at the left guard. You're going to have Zuda back at center, Yonder back at right guard, and you're going to have Wagner back at right tackle if he's healthy, right? Wagner or Jensen. So we'll see what happens this week based on new coordinator, new play scheme, I'm pretty sure. So I don't think it's going to be a lot to get used to, but I think it's going to be a different play calling schemes and things like that. And it's going to get to a point where I think the shakeup was so early now in the season shows that the Ravens front brass is not playing around. That not only is Mark Trestman, now that he's gone, that Harbaugh is probably on. You say you're on the hot seat now. Dean Pease, anybody at this point. If you screw up from this point on and you start losing, we're getting you out of here. We're not waiting any longer. We're not going to wait too long. You're going to be gone in a heartbeat. So I think the front brass sent a very clear message to everyone, players, coaches. This is a team, this is a franchise that's on the up and up. We won 2 Super Bowls now. For the last decade or so, we have been a playoff contender team, but we're trying to get to that next level. The Ravens are trying to get to that next level. We're trying to become a national brand like the Cowboys, like the Patriots, like the Steelers, 49ers of old. And they're trying to get to that level where they're not trying to be regional anymore. They're trying to have mass appeal to anybody and say, hey, I want to be on that Ravens bandwagon. These guys know what they're doing. These guys are great. They're great. They're awesome. They have an excellent squad. So I think the front brass and the ownership is like, we're trying to go in a different direction here. We're not going to wait this long. We're not going to, shuffle our feet or anything. We're going to make this move now. Sending a message to everyone, you guys got to win some football games. The playing time is over. If you guys thought it was going easy, you guys thought your jobs were safe, no longer. Harbaugh's got to step it up, definitely. That's another thing I want to step to. Since Ray Lewis and Ed Reed have left the Ravens, now that it's been Harbaugh's team officially, the Ravens have had a losing record. I think they're like 23-25 since the Ray Lewis and Ed Reed left. You can tell now that he was able to coast off of the command of the team that Ed Reed and Ray Lewis had on that defense especially, and Ray Lewis on our team in general. he coasted off of that. He didn't have to do too much. Let Ray do his thing. Let Ray be the leader of the team. They'll follow Ray. They'll do what Ray tells them to do. Now that they don't really have that guy because Suggs isn't that guy, and Flacco's not a vocal guy. They don't have that guy on the team that's going to be that leader. They really don't. They don't have that guy, so they look to the head coach. And the team embodies the personality of its head coach. And you can just tell a lot of times that they don't seem to have that passion, they don't seem to have that fire, that attitude that they used to have when under Brian Billick, when Ray Lewis was in his prime and Ed Reed was in his prime. You had Chris McAllister, you had Peter Boulware and those boys. Like, that team of yesteryear, you never questioned. Though when they stepped on the field, teams were generally afraid of that defense. Because they knew they were coming. They were coming to play football. We're coming out here and we're going to prove, I don't care who you are, if you say you're the best in the league, you're going to prove it to us. And I just don't feel we have that right now with this team. Obviously, I don't think that's going to change with Marty Morningwig coming in, but at least they'll make them more consistent on offense with a running the ball and passing the ball, and hopefully make it more exotic. Maybe Marty Morningwig has, stuff that he has from the Eagles days when he was, coaching there. We had McNabb, and then when, those top 10 offenses he ran. Obviously, he did something well to garner top 10, ratings in the offense, during his time as offensive coordinator for other teams. So I'm hoping he brings in some different wrinkles that make sense. Obviously, they're not going to go out there and find somebody right now. I don't know if Marty Morningwig is going to keep the job come the end of the year. I don't know if Harbaugh is going to keep the job at the end of the year. I've been an advocate of getting rid of Harbaugh now for the last couple of years. That my dad made a good point that Harbaugh is a special teams coach. He's never been a coordinator, offensive or defensive coordinator, and he just said he was able to coast off of having Ray Lewis and Ed Reed there, but since then he struggled, to win games and playing down to teams and making mistakes. Penalties still are a problem, and you're now in this little 7th, 8th year as head coach, and these are still issues. This is basic fundamental football, and now the special teams is messing up. You saw yesterday with the Crowder touchdown. So I think it's getting to a point now where the Ravens, I think they're losing trust in Harbaugh's decision making. And you remember back in a couple of years ago when they were looking for a new offensive coordinator after Jim Caldwell left, and they told Harbaugh, give us a list of coordinators you want to hire to be your new OC. And he gave him a list, and Ozzie Newsome and Steve and those guys were like, no. They picked no one from that list because the list was revealed. He had guys like Kyle Shanahan and guys we never heard of before. Basically, like my dad said, he hires a bunch of yes men, or guys that won't challenge him or challenge his authority or things like that. Guys that won't rock the boat, so to speak. And we can see it. They have the intensity in themselves. They don't show it on the field when they call the plays. Dean Pease doesn't attack on defense. They don't blitz a lot. They play all this prevent defense and this zone defense, and they're not attacking the quarterback. So you can see that Harbaugh brings in these players and these guys that are going to just listen to what he says and say, okay, boss, and not challenge anything he says and go out there and say, no, you know what? I know he said this, but we're going to run this thing. We're going to do this because that's not going to work. We need to do this today. He doesn't have those guys around in his units, whether the players or coaches. And when they brought in Gary Kubiak as OC, I guarantee you that was a signal to Harbaugh saying, you had a list. We didn't like it. So we're going to bring in a guy who knows to get it done. That offense under Gary Kubiak was amazing. They were great under that offensive scheme. They were for the first time in the Ravens' history, they were ranked as a top 10 offense under Gary Kubiak. But then he goes off to Denver and becomes a head coach. And now the Ravens are back at square one. So I think, and then he brings in Mark Trestman. So I think the Ravens are now, I think at this point, Harbaugh's at the end of his rope, where I think it's just a matter of time at this point that this won't be the only firing that happens this season. I think regardless of what happens this season, I think Harbaugh, as at this point, is on the hot seat. If things don't pan out for the rest of the season, I mean, even if they do finish 9-7, 10-6, I think this could be it for Harbaugh, where they try to go a different route. They got to change the attitude of this team. You got to bring in somebody that's going to, bring in some kind of passion, some kind of intensity, so that the guys can, relay that on the field. They need to go a different route. I think they can see that now. But I think Harbaugh is out. I think he's done. The Trestman firing was the first of many to happen. And where the Harbaugh goes, everybody goes. And I think they don't like really Dean Pease that much because this defense isn't as vaunted as it used to be. So I think at the end of this season, when it comes to that Black Monday or whatever they call it, once the season's over, I think Harbaugh will be one of those guys going. I would not be surprised if that happens. So, I mean, that's my little spiel for right now. I'll probably do a video for the Giants game coming up. We'll see. I mean, we're gonna have to really see what happens on the field there to see what differences, what changes have been made, to see if anything is actually promising for this team coming up in the next several weeks. Anyway, that's my video for today. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you guys later this week. All right, peace.